possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
Hello, everybody. How are you tonight? This is Matt Kennedy checking in. This is the Ultra MK podcast, where we are reversing the narrative. And tonight I have a very, very special guest and actually a new friend of mine who I met through some other mutual friends. And he happens to also live in California like I do. And he has some very cool information to share tonight with you guys as our audience, as he's been involved in so many different aspects of bringing truth and speaking truth to power and organizing events all across not just California, but the rest of the United States. He's seen a lot, he's been through a lot, he's experienced a lot, but at the end of the day, I know he loves the Lord. He wants to bring the Constitution and restore the Republic back to what it should be, based on what our founders had envisioned. And he's doing everything he can with what he has to work with, and his track record says that a lot. So, without further ado, Lewis Herms, how are you, buddy?
Fantastic. Oh, it's so good to be here, Matt. It's been a busy week, of course, but it's all worthwhile in what we're doing.
Oh, I know, man. I can imagine all the things that you get involved with. And, I know that you've done a lot of work in the digital space for a long time too, with having your own show and website, which is screwbiggov.com. For those who haven't been to his website or seen it, I definitely suggest you check it out after this show today. Check out screwbiggov.com and you can learn more about the work that Lewis has been doing. But Lewis, tell me a little bit about how you first were basically like inspired just as a citizen of the United States. Like, what was it that really made you want to start doing what you're doing with advocacy and bringing truth to people?
Well, started, well, I guess it really started when I was younger. I was always kind of pushing back against the establishment, um, a rebel, and then when I got into I was a latchkey kid and kind of got my butt kicked every year, every day when I was from 6 to 11 years old, and then finally I ended up grabbing a baseball bat and fighting back. And then I went into martial arts because I had to calm my temper down. Probably a baseball bat's not always the solution. It worked good that day though.
Yeah.
And then the older I got, I really started to have empathy for victims of bullies. And my nickname through junior high and some of high school was the Bully Buster. Um, because when even though I was smaller in stature, I knew that if you punched a bully in the face, they weren't expecting that, right? And it kind of transitioned into my anti-establishment roots because the reality is that we're dealing with bullies. These are parasites and they bully. And a lot of times they bully for control, but they also bully out of fear because they don't want you to really see what they're doing. So if you step out of line, i.e., Tina Peters, i.e., Dr. Young, or a truther, they will do illegal things in order to not just get you in line, but to send a message to everybody else they're afraid of, to hopefully they don't step out of line. So I make it my mission to constantly step out of what they would call line. And we will not be bullied. And that's my platform is Screw Big Gov. Here's a fun thing, which you'll know is one of my best favorite days is about 5 years ago when I selected the name. I knew I wanted to register it with the state of California, and I knew I would have to get on the phone with them because that's the process. So sure enough, I sent it in. They called me to verify this is what you want to do. Yes. And this is the name SCREWB. And I go, wait, what does it say? And they're like, it says SCREW. I go, no, what does it say? I don't understand what you're saying. I need to know what it says. And he's finally like, screw big gov. I go, exactly. That is my name. So I registered that name. I made sure that California had to say it to me and I wanted to make it official, even though I didn't need to. I wanted to make it official for that reason. It's kind of a stand up in your face, guys. This is what's going on. And the guy, even though he was on a recorded line, he says, I'm on a recorded line, but just so you know, I agree with you. Click. Right? Which is hilarious. So it kept going on, and I won't say I've been a kind of a conspiracy theorist truther all my life, but I when I was younger, I definitely was listening to shows like Coast to Coast, Art Bell, and really learning what's going on out there. And it was very easy to see what was going on when what I call the panic-demic hit. It was very clear what was going on, and I said, my wife and I had some conversation. I said, I'm going to do a movie about this, and that kind of was the beginning of this journey.
Wow. That's pretty cool, man. How you just took like the type of child that you were and related that into the fighting spirit that you have to kind of stick up for those who can't stick up for themselves against bullies. And
Which,
how
by
that
the way, is one of the true definitions of the word meek, not the one that corporate churches try to convince you it is.
That's so true. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Um, and so that's interesting that you've kind of evolved into doing what you're doing now. And and so also with the pandemic, scandemic that was pulled on us as the largest psyop in human history. You were able to use that as a method to actually reach out to people, especially during a time when government tyranny was at its peak and they were
Mhm.
trying to close down people's businesses and schools and shutting everything down. Can you tell us a little bit about what you decided to do when that all happened?
Yeah, I made a conscious choice. It took a week, but I made a conscious choice to keep my business open while everybody else was shutting down. And we were in the construction business. And it was during lockdowns. This is no exaggeration. I felt like we were in the old Wild West and driving down streets with sagebrush rolling across them because it was desolate.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was almost like an apocalyptic movie, right?
it
Like,
was crazy. So there was a job about 40 minutes from us, and it was just full free, nobody on the freeway, nobody on the street, nobody on the highway that we ended up getting to this place. It was very, very weird, right? But we stayed open. I had a construction business at the time, and we did our thing. And we wouldn't wear masks. We didn't do anything. And I soon noticed that the regulations, I felt like they were laughing at us, like, let's get them to stand 6 feet apart because
yes,
that's going to save your life, right? Well, I also knew that we resonate with about 3 feet of energy around us. So what happens is if you're 6 feet apart, now two people can't resonate together. So that, in my opinion, was one of the reasons why they did that. We also figured out really quick that the smallest hole on the mask was still 500 times larger than the largest portion of a virus. So that was like Scott says, it's like using a chain link fence to stop mosquitoes,
mosquitoes.
right? It doesn't work. It's
It's
ridiculous.
it,
And then the kicker for my wife and I was when they've said you have to wear a mask all the time, but when you sit down to eat, you can take it off, or even inside of an airplane, that tube. So I started joking around. I'm like, honey, it's as if that the virus is extraordinarily intelligent. She says, what do you mean? I go, because it's ready to go and get you, but as soon as you get down below the 3 feet line, it's like, hey, yeah, hands off, guys, lunch break. We can't do anything to you. And people would just be compliant like that. And we were in place just shaking our head constantly. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And I
yeah,
feel bad for people. And I'm not mocking them, I'm mocking the system that they were actually compliant, thinking that they're actually safe because they're sitting down. Suddenly, that virus is not going to get to them. It was ridiculous, and that's why I named it the panic demic, because that's what it was. Everybody was just in a panic.
yeah. No, it's so true. It's like with all of the mandate and the policies that they were rolling out and trying to get people to comply with, there's so many things that would contradict one thing to the next, and that you can kind of poke holes in to realize that, this is just not adding up. Like the whole, like if you were to take a flight back then, they would make you stand 6 feet apart in line to get onto the flying tube. And once you're in the flying tube, you're like shoulder to shoulder with people
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this, and it's like, how does this make sense?
There was no sense to it whatsoever. And then you had like Governor Newsom and Nancy Pelosi that were constantly caught at parties and getting their hair done with no mask on, but yet telling you that you have a mask on, or
Yeah.
or they don't have a mask on, and as soon as they're going in front of a camera, they put their mask on. And people weren't seeing that. And that's the part that really blew me away is the hypocrisy of these parasites that were the controllers. People didn't see it. They just didn't get it. And it's really, really sad. But how about this? This one blows me away. So bars and strip clubs open, right? Uh, churches, restaurants closed. How's that work?
Right.
Why? Why?
Right.
I'm guessing essential must be a bar or a strip club.
Right. No, it was blatant like evil. It was policy rooted in evil, right? Because like people who would compare those institutions or those entities, one being more important than the other, dude, like anybody can see that that's not right. That just doesn't add up.
Don't work out, don't go to church, but go ahead and drink, right?
Yeah.
And go ahead and go to a strip club. And what people don't understand is that's intentional because they like playing head games with us. And
Yeah.
they're in their boardrooms all together, just with their masks off, by the way, laughing at the people. They're like, they're not even pushing back. No
Yeah.
church, but they're going to a bar, right?
Yeah. No,
Crazy.
and the hysteria, I mean, like to me, it really showed the level of I would say mental illness that's in society today because of just how certain people did react and we're generally scared. And I'm not saying this to mock those people. Those are all my brothers and sisters in Christ. But some people were just super fearful of the situation. And I know you've probably seen this too. If you're on any social media, you'll see there's been people that have made like montage, like flashbacks of the way that people were like making their own gas masks and putting weird things on their head, like
Mhm.
water jugs and just that kind of just fear, like the fear that they were feeding into to help perpetuate with this narrative to give the mainstream media something to use to keep that fear snowballing down the road. That was
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. The saddest one that I saw is when parents were making these plastic sheets for a grandma or a grandpa to hug their grandchildren.
Yeah, that was pretty far-fetched. That was pretty crazy.
It's the worst. It's just
Yeah, and
absolutely worst.
yeah, my heart broke because I actually knew people who unfortunately had lost some people in and around that time, and they weren't allowed to have a funeral for him,
Right.
and that was tragic, not being able to say goodbye to
Right.
loved ones and stuff, and
Right. Because funerals are a lot less important than a strip club or a bar.
yeah, I know. I mean, the laugh. I mean,
No, it's true.
I
You
mean,
kind of have to laugh at it
you have to at
because
this
the only way
point.
you're going to cope.
That's my coping mechanism. I'll be the first one to tell you, like when things get too heated and serious, I like to make a joke. I like to laugh. So that's my medicine. But tell me about the tours. Like didn't like you helped organize and put together strategic stops in order to bring certain people that would then deliver information to the public. And can you tell us
Right.
a little bit about that journey?
So I started something called the Truth Tours. And it was fairly successful. We did, I think our first one was, I think it was 26 stops, I believe, in 30 days, all around the nation. So between all our tours, we travel the nation, I think 3 full times and then up and down the East Coast, one extra time and up and down the West Coast an extra time. And they were pretty powerful. We did truth tours, we did boot camps, and we ended up with the Unity tour. So I ended up doing 117 different stops. It's supposed to be 127 or maybe 126, but we cut off 9 or 10 of them during the Unity tour due to the fact of Hurricane Helene. We ended up diverting our attention and helping people instead of continuing with the tour.
Yeah.
And that was very successful too, as successful as you can in a tragedy like that. Um, but it was all about giving people an opportunity to wake up. One of our best tours was True Tour 2 because we named it the Forbidden Cities. And we got the best reaction on that Truth Tour when we got out of the vehicles, because we pull up sometimes in a caravan and people were just bawling. and literally just bawling and crying because they didn't get any attention in Seattle or near Portland in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Brooklyn, New York. We went to what we call the Forbidden Cities, where how dare you, a conservative group of truthers would end up going there. But I can tell you, we got the warmest reception there because they just have never seen anybody because other tours were afraid to go in there. They always go where it's easy. I've always had to tend to take the road less traveled because the most riches emotionally are always on the road less traveled, in my opinion. Kind of like
Yeah.
my gubernatorial run. It's definitely going to be the road less
Okay,
traveled.
well let's officially, I mean, now that you guys are getting to know Lewis Herms, let's officially let everybody know. Lewis, what are you gonna do here in California?
So I've already put in the paperwork and it's official. I'm running for governor of California.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So tell us a little bit about what things that you would like to do once elected to California. What would you like to focus on, or what do the people need to understand when it comes to making California great again?
Yeah, well, actually, I think it comes way before the election. What I'm going to start doing, well, I've already done it. So I'm kind of nicknamed the anti-politician. That's a badge of honor, right?
Yeah.
Or the we the people guy. And I kind of like the we the people guy because I'm boots on the ground, constantly always have been, talking to people, finding out what their needs are, and then I'm going to expose the parasites. So what I have a feeling the Democrats and Republicans both are not going to talk about, they're not going to talk much about human trafficking because they're afraid of the control mechanism that will come down on them. I bet you both of them probably will not go too deep into election fraud, right? They don't want to go down that. And what they tend to do in the political class, and I think most candidates are going to do this, I won't say all, I believe they're probably going to do polling. What do the people want to hear? Well, that's what I'm going to tell them. So they become a caricature of themselves. So you're actually not ever getting the true authentic person when they run in a political environment because they're more interested in maximizing their voters by manipulating and lying to them. And that's what they do. And this is part of the parasitic class I talk about. I'm the exactly opposite. You don't have to like me, but I sure hope you respect the fact that I want to open conversations up to both sides. I have a feeling JFK Democrats are going to be attracted to my policies and my platform, and I know conservatives will, especially the ones that are disenfranchised by the corrupt GOP system that's already in California now. And I think it's going to be very, very exciting. And I hope to wake people up to human trafficking, election fraud, and the parasites that control. Those are kind of my three pillars right there. If I can do that, I've done a phenomenal job. And that's really what I'm hammering on during the campaign.
From your position and your optics of the chessboard, now most people would think that a candidate with the most money can traditionally win in most
Mhm.
elections, especially a state like California where it's obvious so big. Its GDP is pretty high. With I think we might be the fifth or sixth, still the largest economy in the world. But there's a lot of lobbyists. There's a lot of influence here in this state,
Mhm.
and the political class and the political establishment has a lot at stake in this race. So with candidates having deep pockets and money, and then candidates who don't have a lot of money, how do you see yourself navigating in this race?
So I believe truth and authenticity is is something that's going to generate a lot of excitement for people. And that's not a way to buy votes, that's the way to earn votes. I also understand that I believe probably nobody's going to work as hard as me and just go by history of doing things. I'm pretty confident of that. I'm pretty confident that I'll be the grassroots guy and I'll be able to flip a lot of voters because I'm willing to have conversations with them. Probably places people are unwilling to go. I'll go into urban neighborhoods, I'll go into colleges, and really want to have conversations with people. I really believe that even Democrats and Republicans, that D and the R, are probably 80% they have in common. It's the 20% that the political class always focus on because they need us divided. If we're divided, they control us.
Yeah, that's for
Imagine that
sure.
we're not divided. Let's say, hey, good, we've got the 80% down. Way to go, bud. Maybe we can hash out the 20% like our founding fathers did without having the noise of political parasitic controllers telling us what to think. That's the approach I'm going to take. Very unique. I think it's going to scare the crap out of some people when they see me get some traction. And I'm all in. You know what I mean? I'm big pharma. I'm coming.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know a lot of people, no matter what your political beliefs are or where you are on the political spectrum, most people want to be healthier and to have their families be healthy. So I know that with what you want to do with exposing, big pharma corruption within the system of both pharmaceuticals and food and even big tech, like how are they propping up those industries? I'm sure there's a lot of things that you can expose or talk about to help not only wake people up, but essentially maybe earn their votes. Um, let's talk about like alliances. I know that like, for example, with federal government, if
Mhm.
you have a president in place that the people voted for in a duly elected election, um, but you don't have the right amount of people like in the House, for example, how legislation just, it can't get through and you can't really run a country forever off of executive orders. You actually have to have things be passed, from House and Senate. So how important will it be to not only run a campaign, but also to build alliances in Sacramento?
Huge, huge. But I'm going to build them before I get to Sacramento. And I think that's the key. And sorry, people that are already in office, I already inherently do not trust you. So I'm going to see if what we can do to get a bunch of new blood in there that really care about we the people and only we the people. And we'll see what happens. But maybe if we get some traction, we'll have some coattails to run on also, which would be I'm all for it. If you can prove to me that you care about the people first, because ultimately we think that there's a government control and there's really not. We, the people, are in control. We just don't know it.
That's
So we
true.
so we bound down. Mandates, by the way, are completely illegal, but we listen to them. Why? Because a Newsom threw out a dog whistle, and then many of the corporations said, "Oh, let's enforce this."
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. All you had to
Yeah.
do is say no.
What's interesting too is a lot of people don't realize that like in the structure of authority in, let's say, a state like California, that the CHP actually takes direct orders from the governor. California Highway Patrol takes orders directly from the governor. You have the police, your local police. Those are policy enforcers of that local town or city. Then you have the sheriff, and the sheriff's department is to be responsible for each county that they're located in. But per the Constitution, the sheriff has the ultimate authority. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting to see that the hierarchy of structure in our current system, how these things can map out when it comes to enforcing a mandate. Let's say it's not constitutional. You and I just talked 15 minutes on the pandemic, the scamdemic, like even our own law enforcement. Unfortunately, I love to back the blue. I'm not going to take that away from them. I love all of our brothers and sisters out serving, but even them sometimes can be misled because they don't understand the Constitution or the oath that they took. How is that important moving forward as a state, especially should we ever encounter another situation like COVID?
Well, I think they need to reread and internalize their oath because the oath is to the Constitution and being a servant to the people, not a servant to the paycheck. And I've had many discussions with officers and a few here in California, of course, and they feel like they're a servant to their boss and a servant to the paycheck, and they're not. So what happens is because of that, I love to back the blue. In fact, I believe that if, say, there's a BLM group or an Antifa that starts to abuse the police, that we need to hold them accountable at the absolute highest level. At the same time, accountability works both ways. If the police force is acting like Nazi brown shirts, they need to be held accountable at the highest level also. And I believe they don't feel like they're accountable to anybody except who's telling them what to do.
Yeah.
That's going to change. They have to
Yeah.
understand that they're working for we the people. You are at service to we the people. Yes, if you're damn right, you should hold a criminal accountable and be right down the letter of the law. But you
Yeah.
don't overstep and use that power for something that's not constitutional. They need to be retrained. And I think all police officers through the United States, but I'll focus on California, under my governorship, I will put together a program where they will be retrained to respect the Constitution and understand they work for we the people. And that doesn't mean you don't hold criminals accountable. No, you have to hold them accountable at the highest level. Two things are not mutually exclusive. They could work together. I actually think if they did that, they'd have more respect from the community and more support. That's why I created Remember Your Oath. So they understand they're supported when they do great and they're held accountable when they don't. And it has to be a double-edged sword. And I believe a lot of the officers would respect that actually.
I think so too. I think that the more you can help the officers understand their duties even further from just whatever, tactical schools that they've gone through, but really understand like the origin of why they're working with and for we the people, that it'll empower them to feel more confident in doing their job. It's like sometimes, being from California and being more conservative, whenever I travel into, pretty dark blue cities and stuff, I'm like, man, I just want to pray for all the police and sheriff that have to operate in these blue cities, especially through those times of mixed signals of like, what do you mean you want me to go shut down this restaurant that these people are trying to keep open to feed their family? Like some of the things that they were told to go do, it's like must have been tough for them.
They have
So
a constitutional right to push back on their own authority, by the way.
that's right.
They
That's
don't
right.
though, because in fact, we were on the way to Vegas and we stopped in a city, and I was just getting a quick drink, not non-alcohol. I'm a boring guy. I don't drink alcohol, but so we were getting a quick drink because I was thirsty, right? And two cops were there, and I happened to have in my shirt on the Remember Your Oath shirt that says, uh, understand your oath, the Constitution. You work for we the people and we hold you accountable and support you to do your job. And the guy is reading that and he's like, hey, what is that? There's two cops there. And he says, what is that all about? And I started to explain it to him. And I said, when are you, I was talking to one of the officers and looking at the other, when are you going to step up when you see something that is incorrect? And he goes, we see something that's incorrect daily. I said, really? I said, what's it going to take you to step up in the face of authority? He goes, well, I got to be honest with you. By the way, same response I got from Border Patrol when I interviewed them on the border. The response was, I don't want to lose my pension. So that means that the pension is being held over their head. If they step out of line, they're going to get fired. Is that the rule of law we want to live under? That they're under threat of losing their pension if they do not behave improperly, like brown shirts sometimes. Are we okay with that? I'm not okay with that. And I asked, he says, I really want to step up. You can tell there was one cop that agreed with me and one cop that's getting frustrated because you can tell he's part of the establishment. The one agreed to me. I said, what would it take? He said, I'd have to have like 9 or 10 of my buddies to do it at the same time with me. And I'm like, wow, that's a tough get. So they're going to need some leadership to tell them it's okay to push back. You cannot just be a robot and go with the system. If the system is broken, you have to report it. So I would install some protections for police officers to step up and say, hey, I disagree with this. I'm not telling them to be telling on their claw on their fellow blue and being snitches or whatever. That's a whole nother level that they can deal with inside their department. I'm saying if you see them acting unconstitutionally, say, no, no, I can't do that. But they need some protections in there because they're under threat of losing their family's fortunes. And it's really
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, it really is. Too, growing up here in California, I mean, as a kid of, the late eight, I was born in the early 80s and uh, um 90s, growing up here, just seeing it change in just a short amount of time, just the last 20, 25, 30 years. like the dramatic changes. But some topics that come to mind for me as a voter, because in November 26th, I'm going to have to be at the ballot box. But things that I'm going to kind of resonate with when it comes to candidates that I'll end up looking at, and because I'm going to give people a fair chance. But I really like your platform. Things that I have questions about are we going to allow a form of a Doge to come into California to dig into all of the mismanagement of federal money that has been poured into the state every time there's things like fires or homelessness that they have to address? This bullet train that was supposed to connect San Francisco to LA, and now it's like going to connect Merced to Bakersfield. There's so many okay, here's some other. I have a citizen journalist friend of mine, Audra Morgan. If you're watching this video, I love you, girl. She's down in San Diego doing amazing work on exposing corruption in San Diego, between some of the NGOs that have been orchestrated to operate on the border, which you know a lot about as well, Lewis. There's so much corruption from the top down in most of these blue cities. Um, I mean, what kind of ideas or things that would you have in order to help follow the money to the things that they've been doing? Or even like, why is our current governor rolling out a red carpet for Xi Jinping of China and not cleaning up the city on a regular basis? But if the president of China wants to come, he's going to roll out red carpet, and you won't find a piece of gum on the ground, you won't find a cigarette butt. All the graffiti got painted overnight, and there's not one homeless person. It's like something doesn't add up, right? And would you want to have like a Doge come through California?
I wouldn't allow a Doge. I would mandate a Doge.
All right.
No, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. I actually am doing some research right now, and this may freak some people out. I believe based on government overspending and the way the taxation works and some huge benefits that California has over other states, I believe that you can probably, and I say probably, eliminate state taxes and property taxes from a state level
Wow,
and
that's
still have
huge.
more than enough money to spend.
What's wild is, and you know this, Lewis, like especially if you've toured around California like I did. So I helped a woman run for U.S. Senate, Charlita Bassett, U.S. Senate, just a year and a half ago. And I traveled from top to bottom. The socioeconomic divide from county to county and from coast to inland, it's wild to me to see that. Like, just literally like a few miles to this direction or that direction, you have, mansions and these, these wild property values on homes. And then you go somewhere else and it's like there's just a stark difference. So why is that? Is that because just, certain political class establishment kind of run a system that's where they want to live, and then people beyond there, they just have to live like peasants and serfs? Like, what's your take on that?
You nailed it. You nailed it. So what happens is the parasitic political class controls all of that stuff. They intentionally. So you think it's a free market. There's not nothing free and clear about our market. We are not on a level playing field. The way they tax and the way they give incentives certain ways is or in order to position their political class, even gerrymandering districts, it's crazy, is to position their political class to live where they want and have all the benefits of the good stuff. And then you have a poor middle class that's paying for everything.
Hmm.
And it's not just disgusting, it's gross.
Yeah,
It is sick. I would even say it's borderline satanic, and I don't think I'm crossing the line there. So
no,
it's completely intentional. But I want people to look at things. And this is really what I think I'm going to make a difference. We're conditioned to think D and R, red and blue, liberal and conservative, black and white. That's where we're conditioned to think. The reality is there's a whole hue of colors and differences in the middle. But there's also a whole, if you do a Venn diagram, and I should probably do one on this, I bet you we'd probably connect on 80% of our issues. And if the Democrats and the Republicans can separate, get rid of the D's and the R's and just say, what do we have in common? They're like, wow, okay. So let's use our differences as a righteous conversation, a spirited debate like the founding fathers had, right? Let's do that, and let's see where we can move forward together. But guess what? The political class doesn't like that because you cannot control a constituent that's willing to converse with each other. You can only control them if they're at each other's throats. So people think they're using their free will and their minds to go after go after those liberal, crazy, whacked out lefties or those MAGA Trump guys. They think that's their own free will. I would say you're being controlled. I would say the political and the MK Ultra influence is on you, and you need to take a deep breath. I actually believe that most of California leans conservative.
I
If you
would I would agree with that.
if you have real conversations with them, because
I
and
would agree.
you want to say election fraud doesn't exist, okay, please somebody tell me who voted for Maxine Waters or a Nancy Pelosi or an Adam Schiff or a Governor Newsom. Who did that? No, but no, not very many people did that. So that should be all the evidence you need. But we've got a lot more evidence that we're going to be presenting in regards to that too. And you know who I'm working with.
I do. No, I'm really looking forward to what results you guys put out. Yeah, I mean, I personally was involved in the very first recall of Gavin Newsom, and that was during COVID. I mean, that was during lockdown type
Mhm.
stuff, and I remember being on the side of a road in a purple county, you could say, and cold weather. I think it was wintertime, and I was all freezing cold, got a beanie on my head, and I had my big Recall Gavin Newsom banner tied up to my Easy Up canopy, and I had my flags up, American flags up, and just had a really good spot for people to safely pull in and pull out. Man, I must have saw every every demographic of California citizen pull into my booth to sign that petition. And it was everybody. I mean, it was the lifted truck,
Mhm.
with the hunting stickers to a Subaru with a rainbow flag. I mean,
Yep.
I saw it all.
Yep.
And everybody mutually said what he's doing is not right. The way that he's running government is not right because our families are being affected. So how did he evade that recall, especially with releasing the results, what, within an hour or two? Like, you guys counted all those recall ballots in an hour or two, and you guys came to a firm decision. But if it was a presidential election, hey, we need 2 weeks. We need actually
Right.
3 weeks,
That's right.
like, come on, man. I was born at night, but not last night, Lewis.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And the first results that came out showed him winning at 66.6%.
Well, if I was a guy that liked numbers and symbols to show my wink wink to the club, I'd
Right.
probably post that statistic. What
I'm
would you
sure
think?
it's just a coincidence, right? So I'll give you two anecdotes that shows that these are lies. My wife and I think it was the leading up to the recall, we together, I believe we came up with about 26 people, if I remember, that's what we counted together. 26 out of 26. By the way, we did not know their political affiliations. And I do believe, to be honest, I think I counted us as part of the 26, but it was 26-0 to recall Gavin Newsom. And I can tell you, just recently, I told four liberals that I was in the same room with, right? Clearly, they were liberal, that I was putting my hat in the ring for governor, and they said I cannot wait to get rid of that guy. And they were
Yeah,
talking about Gavin Newsom. These are liberals, by the way.
yeah,
So, so to say that he won 67% of the vote is ludicrous. But
yeah.
what do we do? This is what we do in California. We just go, okay, we'll get him next time. Well, sorry guys, there's no getting him next time. We need to push back now.
That's right. And honestly, California, from my perspective, whether it's you or any of the other conservative candidates, I know you're running as independent, but we need a disruptor. We don't need another Arnold Schwarzenegger he was a good actor, but he was an appeaser. He appeased people. He wanted to make everybody happy. And more than that, it wasn't even just making the left happy and the right happy. It was like corporate interest happy and Silicon Valley happy, and
Hmm.
all the people that kind of, you look back in time, were the ones that kind of laid the foundation for mismanagement of the state of California, and then the inner workings of the corruption of the state. It was before that. It was actually Brown, but I mean, you start looking at patterns, and you say, oh, they're playing for the same team, but they just wear different
They
jerseys.
are. It's a uniparty in
It's a
California.
uniparty in California. It's their
Yep.
model, right? And I guarantee, I mean, I don't have first hand information. I bet you Alex Jones does, but I bet you that, allegedly they probably went to Bohemian Grove, which is in our neck of the
Mhm.
woods in our
Mhm.
state. And man, I'd love to bring you on sometime and talk more about just that in general. The state itself, wouldn't you say, is so dynamic when it comes to the powers to be, or people who want power here in the state, and how they honeypot one another to keep everybody on their team. Isn't that
Well,
pretty
they do.
interesting, between Bohemian Grove and Hollywood?
Yeah, well, they do it big time. I've exposed. There's a mansion in Beverly Hills that I believe that's exactly what they do. That's what Diddy was involved in doing. I believe Adam Schiff has some relations in that area and some scandalous stuff.
Allegedly, yeah.
Stuff also. I said I believe. I'm
Yeah.
always very careful with my words, and I'm going to say this. I believe that the GOP of California is corrupt.
Mhm.
I believe that if you get their endorsement, you need two things. You need a huge bankroll, which, by the way, one of the Republicans already has. And I believe that you would have a quid pro quo with them. I mean, it's amazing. I just learned recently that the way, okay, so there's separate precincts all throughout California, right? And let's say Republicans, they like to set up, just like Democrats, they need to set up a leader of that precinct. Well, what they did is they wrote in a rule that a previous establishment person that was in that position, no matter how long, in perpetuity, as long as they're alive, gets an opportunity to vote for the precinct leader. So what they've done is the GOP has guaranteed that they always have establishment candidates rolling on there. So if you have 6 or 7 people that are supposed to vote, you may have add 3 or 4 or 5 extras to all the people that are still alive that used to be the precinct leader, right?
Yeah.
That's disgusting. And that's
Yeah.
the games that are played. You should see the gerrymandering of the Republican side, the way it looks like. It's the weirdest stuff in California. So we think, and this is the goal, we think there's an R and a D. I'm here to tell you that people don't really, the bad guys, they don't care who you vote for.
Mm-mm.
They don't care at all who you vote for. They've pre-selected their candidate, but they keep you divided. They keep you at each other's throats because then you don't look and see what's happening. Can you imagine if 80% of people really supported one candidate and that candidate lost by like 20 or 10%? There'd be an uprising.
Yeah.
But now if you think it's always 50-50 or it goes this way or whatever, there's never an uprising because they've got us convinced something else is going on. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. In fact, my wife and I get very upset when people say, "Oh, the baddies are so stupid." No, they're highly intelligent. Never underestimate your enemies. You will fail every time.
Interesting point you make. Something else that I would love to see is leadership in California that would actually assist in investigating a lot of the fires that have broken out in the state,
Mhm.
that have caused, for the federal government to bail out the state because of the catastrophic damage that's been done recently in Los Angeles. We're not hearing anything about the empty reservoir, why the water didn't come out of the fire hydrants. Allegedly, the phone call that happened with Karen Bass as she left the country
Mhm.
coincidentally right before the fire broke out in LA. But even Paradise, the Butte fires, the Rim fires, all these fires, and then for some reason PG&E, for example, who takes the heat on most of these fire origins, okay, follow me for a second, and they're supposed to be reporting to the CPUC, which is the California Public Utilities Commission, to hold them accountable to a certain level. And then the CPUC are unelected board members who are hand selected by the governor, Gavin Newsom. Okay. And as a taxpayer and ratepayer of California, every time a catastrophic fire burns through a city and burns people's houses out and kills people, unfortunately, tragically, everyone's utility bill prices shoot through the roof the following year. So there's some dots there, Lewis, that somebody needs to try to connect, because it just seems like, especially, I've learned this. I've learned that, like, for example, utility districts like PG&E, for example, up north, they've been involved in geoengineering patents since the 1970s. Is there a direct correlation between conditioning the environment of the state to turn it into a tinderbox, and whoever the patsy is for whoever caused the fire? And maybe it was a PG&E transformer, maybe it was something else. But is there a pattern in which, at the end of the day, the bureaucrats in Sacramento get paid back or compensated one way or another, and who's left to pay the bill? The ratepayers. And we're paying it through our gas taxes. We're paying it in our PG&E bills, our SoCal Edison bills, our San Diego Power District bills. I mean, we're paying through the nose. I would love to see somebody connect all those dots with evidence, because that's really where the state has taken us. And that's why people are living paycheck to paycheck, because of situations we've been living through the last 15 to 20 years, Lewis. Call me conspiracy theorist, but I'm a native. Like, I've started looking at these things. Am I crazy for thinking this?
Absolutely. And by the way, here's my tinfoil hat.
Bro, can you please let me borrow that on my
Yeah,
show,
I
please?
know,
Because
right.
I'm just trying to ask questions. Like,
That's
I'm
all,
starting to
that's all
see
we're doing.
patterns.
That's all we're doing. So I'm gonna help connect 3 dots for you. Okay. Fire abatement and brush clearing has been proven extraordinarily successful in order to stop these massive fires. Why did Gavin Newsom and previous governors virtually stop fire abatement? That should be a question people should ask. Why is water, the flow of water, privatized? Why does a couple named, I believe it's the Resnicks, own most of the water supply?
That's
And then
right.
you should ask another question, and why are they one of the biggest funders against a Governor Newsom recall? How does all that go together?
Right.
Let
Do
me
I
ask
see
you,
political interest? Yeah, there's some cronyism right there.
you think? And then let's go one more. Why in 2012 did Edison post on their website? We have the documentation of this, the specific cities that they were testing smart meters in, and it was about 10% of LA County, and virtually every single one of those cities were the only ones that got hit. These are questions we should have. So people can scream conspiracy theorists. Well, are you suggesting, folks, that we shouldn't ask these questions? Should we just go along to get along? Because I can tell you, I got hammered about showing that there were chemtrails out 5 years ago, and now there's actual states that are making it law to stop chemtrails. So maybe we're conspiracy factualists. Maybe we're just ahead of the curve. And maybe we should all understand that we're under a control mechanism that only cares about their own parasitic values. That's what I'm trying to open people's minds to this. Call me all the names you want, right? I've been studying weather manipulation. It's pretty much since HARP's been established. I actually caught Google back in the day covering up for HARP. Caught him red-handed. Yet everybody says I'm a quack. Okay, but now we have a copy of 230 patents of geoengineering and weather manipulation. So I guess we weren't lying, were we? Right? And this is what people need to start I just want them to open their mind. maybe things aren't right. And I really believe that it's time. And I believe left and right, they feel like something's off. They really feel like something's off. And I'm not running as a Republican because California has corrupt Republican establishment. I'm not running as a Democrat. Barf. I'm running as an independent conservative. And I have to. Good news for me is in California, we have a jungle primary, right? Party doesn't matter. Two Democrats could be the last two people on the ticket for the general election. So it really doesn't matter. But I can't, with a good conscience, run as a Republican at all because it's so corrupt. We are in a uniparty situation. So we are in an illusion in California. And I hope people wake up to that's an illusion and really pay attention to somebody that really wants to have your back, we the people. And I'm going to have conversations with anybody that's willing to open their minds to a conversation. Let's do it.
Well, you've heard it here, folks, on the Ultra MK podcast. We are reversing the narrative. I just wanted to thank you, Lewis, for coming on the show tonight. If people want to find you and support your campaign, how can they find you? And I'll make sure that we get your links in the drop down below.
Sure, they can go to screwbiggov.com. Everything is on screwbiggov.com. And if you click on Herms for Cali, it says Herms for Cali Gov. You'll be able to see us there too. If we need help with donations, we're going up against people that have tens of millions, right? Now, I'm going to manage the campaign of donations with my wife in a way like I would manage the money from California. So I'm going to spend as little as I can to get the maximum out of it. And that's the way the money should be spent. So the good news is I won't need as much as these people that have tens of millions of dollars, but we're going to need enough. We need to hire staff. We got to get boots on the ground, campaign headquarters, so on and so forth. So we do need something. So if you want to go to GiveSendGo and GiveSendGo / Herms for Cali, I think you'll have the link below on that too. We'll take it. If you believe that you actually have somebody finally fighting for you, it's not going to back down to the parasites, I think I might be your guy.
Awesome. And also, too, I think we're going to be seeing you here in a few weeks in Northern California at the Rev 17 conference happening at the Church of Glad Tidings, June 20th through the 22nd, because I know that, through meeting you and through some mutual friends of ours, that you are heavily vested into fighting against child and human trafficking. And you're going to fight with us to destroy the whore of Babylon, as Pastor Dave would say.
That's right.
And so, yeah, we're going to be looking forward to what you have to say there at the conference. And folks, tickets are still on sale while they last. I believe it's not a giant venue. We're going to have, I believe, 600 or just shy of 600 seats. And I believe we only have 200 left. And that's as of today, which is June 4th, 2025. So if you wanted to get your tickets to come and be a part of Rev 17 to learn about the dark underbelly of what's happening with child trafficking in our country and our state, but also hear some solutions from people who want to make a difference to eradicate the industry entirely, this is the show for you. It is 16 and up. It's for mature audiences only. So I want to let you know you'll have to get babysitters, but it'll be worth it. It'll be worth for you to travel to Northern California, the Church of Glad Tidings. It's about 45 minutes north of Sacramento Airport. There is hotels in the town of Yuba City. And so we'd love to have you there. Lewis, anything else you'd like to conclude with?
Well, I'm just proud to be a part of Rev 17 and Piece of Heaven, which you're putting together. I think it's phenomenal. The kids need a place, and I think the construct that you've created and with Pastor Dave is just epic. So you have my full support in regards to that, and I hope to see people there. My wife and I are bringing a lot of our team, so we're bringing a whole bunch of people there too. You guys can meet.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lewis. God bless you in this mission, and we look forward to bringing you back on and catching up with things in your world and how the campaign's running along. And so we'll hope to get you back here soon, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Matt.
Thanks, Lewis.
It's our obligation to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.